Our presenters today are myself, Megan Fitzgerald, and Marcy Tabora. I have been with Abram Interstate for nearly 14 years, and I primarily handle your high-value products.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Marcy Tabora, and I have been with Abram Interstate for approximately 10 years, and previous to that was in the retail agency section for about 15 years.
Thank you, Marcy. Our agenda for today, we're going to go through why you should partner with Abram Interstate, our definition of high value, what markets you can write, some brief overview of our Chubb product, and again, some question and answer at the very end. Why partner with Abram Interstate? Well, we've been in business for 21 years, and aside from being a privately held and operated company, we have a very friendly, energetic team that is ready to help you with your hard-to-place risks. We have an instant chat feature located on our website. That does allow you to connect with an actual account manager here in the office. And again, that is located on the top page of our website. What defines high value? When we talk about high value here, we're looking at a minimum of $450,000. Might not seem that high value to some, but for our Lloyd's of London product, which is also called Brit, $450,000 is the starting point. What that does is allow us to have some flexibility, and it does give us a good option for some of those higher PCs that may not be a traditional high value home you think of, but they are a higher PC with a little bit higher coverage limit, and again gives us some flexibility to write those instead of turning them away. We're also looking at a $1 million limit for true high value. That's when it begins to meet most of our other companies' target for high value, and also tends to require an interior high value inspection. $3 million is Chubb's preferred appetite. They will take lower limits, as we will discuss later on, but $3 million is really their highlight. We can also review some high value through Travelers and Safeco. Travelers has a limit of 1.5. That's the maximum authority to quote. Anything over that limit has to go in for underwriter approval with Travelers. I'd say $2 million is probably the highest they're going to be willing to go unless it's packaged with an auto and other supporting lines. Safeco, we can look up to $3 million with our in-house authority. So Abram Interstate and Lloyd's of London, we do have a very special relationship with them. They are one company that we've written with for probably the longest here. And it's a very unique, specific program to Abram Interstate. As you may know, everyone that writes with Lloyd's has a different contract with them. Those contracts allow us to offer different rates, underwriting guidelines, different forms that we can offer a specific policy. And it gives us great flexibility to build the policy to the risk itself, instead of trying to find a policy to fit the risk. And so with that, I always say give us an opportunity to review the risk, even if you already have a Lloyd's quote. You may have an existing Lloyd's policy too. That doesn't mean that it's blocked. So I know some companies block you once it's with a particular company, no one else can quote it, not Lloyd's. Give us an opportunity, and if you can include a copy of the current policy or the other quote you have from Lloyd's, it does allow us the chance to review it with our underwriters and see if there's anything we can do to either be more competitive or maybe offer some different terms that you weren't able to obtain elsewhere. Our high-value Lloyd's offering is for Homeowners HO3 and Dwelling Fire DP3 policies. We do not write any actual cash value policy forms within that product. Again, we call our Lloyd's of London high-value program Brit, so we do refer to it as Brit policies. We write Homeowners HO3 for owner-occupied, primary, secondary, or seasonal homes, and a really nice product feature is we can entertain writing vacation homes, vacation rentals. So if you have a home that is the insured's primary dwelling, but at times they may put that up for a vacation rental, such as on VBRO or Airbnb, things like that. it allows us to endorse the policy so that although it's written for primary occupancy, it has that endorsement to allow for some occasional rental of the dwelling. For dwelling fires, it is, again, for primarily tenant occupied, but we can also place seasonal secondary homes in that line, and straight vacation rental. So if you have another property and all they use it for is vacation rental, that's the great product there. We also can write some owner-occupied homes in the dwelling fire line if there's any need to, say, limit some coverages, restrict coverages, things like that. It's a good offering for DP3 as well. So here we have just a very brief overview of some eligible and ineligible items. This just is really a highlight of what we can help with, but Lloyd's has a very wide range of products. And when we look at things like a trust, an LLC, a lot of our admitted companies will not touch that. Lloyd's has no problem. We do have a specific supplement that we need for that, but that's about it. Coast and pier, oceanfront, things like that, things that a lot of companies will say no to, we really don't have any problem with. Ineligible items, I mean, for the most part, they're very straightforward. Open claims we just can't entertain, and repair damage. Severe claim activity, though, I do want to point out, because what some carriers may refer to as severe, we don't. So, for instance, if you have someone that has a prior dog bite, even if they still have that dog, we may entertain placing coverage, and at times even still with liability. A lot of companies just say no, absolutely not. So how do you quote this Lloyd's BRIT product? One option is a completed ACORD application. That really is the best method. It is our preferred method for submitting business, and you would send that to that email address you see on the screen here. We do ask that that application is completed to the best of your ability. The more information we have on there, the better opportunity we have to quickly review and underwrite the risk and assess which product we can place it in, and to know if we're going to need to submit it to the company for underwriter approval. In some instances, it may require the carrier to approve, in which case we're looking at a slightly longer turnaround time since they're working on London time, but otherwise we do have in-house authority. We also have a Pure rater. That's one of our online rating systems. That is primarily geared towards any standard coverage limit. I'd say really $750 and below is what you're going to quote through Pure. However, if you're very familiar with that system and you're used to submitting business that way, go ahead and submit your high value through there as well. You're not going to get a true valid quote on there. However, it does give you an opportunity to submit the risk a little bit easier, so you don't have to bother with the ACORD application. We may come back and ask for some little detail since it doesn't have everything on the ACORD, but again, that's a conversation we can have one-on-one. The Express Rater is our newest online rating system. It's a great product to highlight. However, it's really for our admitted companies. It gives you some real-time rates with Travelers and Safeco specifically. However, again, if you are in there already using the system, go ahead and submit the application, even if it's for Lloyd's, because we can use that online app as well. So either three of those methods are perfect for us. Once you've received your Lloyd's quote from our office, it will have specific binding instructions. For the most part, it's going to be very straightforward. You just simply email or fax to buy-ins at Abram Interstate, or if you're faxing, you're going to send that to 916-780-7181. Either of those routes work for us. At times, we may require certain items that are needed prior to bind or at time of binding, such as proof of a closed claim, certificates for central station alarms, things like that. But aside from that, again, you're just going to send in your request. If we've provided multiple copies of a quote for a different deductible or coverage limits, we do ask you to send us a copy of the quote so we know which one you want to bind. And down payment or full premium is required at time of binding. However, if you have a lender pay situation, just let us know that it is coming from the lender. Make sure you do provide us with the full mortgage clause, and that is sufficient. So in that case, we don't need premium at time of binding. One really nice item to point out here, you don't have to worry about the diligent search form. The SL2 is completed through our office, so you don't have to do that. Abram Interstate and Chubb. We started working with Chubb last year. We are working to gain more traction with them. Of course, the more business we can place, the better underwriting capabilities we will develop. They are a A++ rated by AM Best Company, and they are one of the world's largest publicly traded P&C insurers. So they operate in 54 countries. We are primarily looking at California risks, again, with Chubb. They do write in some other states. Again, contact us for any additional information if you're looking at that. And they are known for some very competitive pricing, but also for some very thorough underwriting and mapping. So we'll get into some of their underwriting a little bit later here. When we're looking at Chubb and their high-value home offering, we are definitely looking at a $1 million coverage limit as the minimum. As I said earlier, $3 million is kind of their target dwelling limit. That's where they feel they really start to be more competitive, again, because primarily most of the other markets are going to bow out at that limit. So $3 million is their kind of sweet spot. But for our quoting, we look at $1 million. If you have a lower limit, it is a potential to quote with Chubb. However, they do require at that point some other lines of business. They're looking for auto, secondary homes, dwelling fire, umbrella, all of those bells and whistles they can add on, the better likelihood it is that they'll return a quote. Definitely, if you're looking below $500,000, Chubb wouldn't be the market, though. That's going to go through a different company altogether. A really nice feature of Chubb is that they do offer 200% extended replacement cost. And although it's 200%, from what we understand with their claims process, they basically pay out what it costs to rebuild the home, subject to claim circumstance, of course. And so they really do a great job of working with the customers during those, probably one of the hardest times in the event of a total loss, and to get that customer back up and running. With Chubb, we're looking at an HO3 dwelling fire and a DP3 dwelling fire form. For their HO3, it is owner primary and owner seasonal or secondary, but with the seasonal or secondary, they do require the primary. They do not make any exceptions. So for the most part, we're looking at owner primary, again, unless there's supported lines of business. For dwelling fire, it should be a 1 to 4 family dwelling unit, tenant occupied, and for that, they also do require the primary. So again, anything that we can package is really our preference, and that gives us the option to work with Chubb and give you the best quote possible. Please remember that for any monoline standalone dwelling fire, we have Brit, so we can still help you with those products. Here's a quick overview of some eligible and ineligible items with Chubb. Again, since they are one of our most fairly new products to our personal lines, we don't have a very hard and fast rule on what they will take and what they won't, because for the most part they have told us just submit the risk, just let us give them an opportunity to quote it. There are a couple items, though, that they really won't entertain. Unrepaired damage, severe claim activity, open claim activity is definitely going to be out of the realm for them. Chubb binding. When you receive a Chubb quote, it is going to contain some specific binding instructions. Again, because they have such a thorough underwriting process, they may come back with some additional information that is required to confirm that rate prior to binding or required at binding. Such as, for example, they really need to know about retrofitting for older properties. There have been times when they want confirmation of that retrofitting, either photos, appraisals from a prior insurer showing that it's retrofitted. So again, think of that with Chubb, that it is meant for a preferred clientele that is really looking to be a long-term customer with that company. They're not looking to shop annually. Chubb is the market for them. They are a direct bill only company similar to Travelers and Safeco. So once you've submitted your bind request, Chubb is going to issue the policy and issue the bill directly to the customer. So you're going to send that to that email address you saw on the screen previously, binds@abraminterstate.com. Here we have some common underwriting questions. These are things that can really help us determine which product to approach and to know how competitive we're going to be able to price your quote. Current carrier and target premium, right off the bat, that's going to tell us whether this is even worth your time investing in this quote, or whether or not we're going to whether or not we're going to need additional information to maybe get to that target premium. The client's occupation information, it may seem unnecessary, and on a lot of quotes for your standard products, it may be, but when we're looking at high value, especially when you're getting into the $2 million and over mark, we need as much detail about that insured as we do about the dwelling, because all of those pieces come into play, especially in the time of a claim, unfortunately. So the more information, the better. Specialty features, make sure you let us know any of those items. Aside from what you see here, just anything that might stick out as sort of an oddity of the dwelling, a specialty feature is going to determine whether or not we can even place the risk at all. But we have had some of the items you see on the screen submitted and been able to be quoted without a problem. So this concludes our High Value Home webinar. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon and for bearing with us through our audio difficulties. We do appreciate all of you taking time out of your busy day. And we hope that you gained a little bit more knowledge on our high value home appetites and quoting process, some increased underwriting understanding, and basically just a better familiarity with what we can offer. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat feature. We are going to briefly go through some questions that were asked during our webinar. So if you'll bear with us just for a moment, we'll go through and try and answer as many of you as possible. Again, please keep in mind that a recording of this presentation is going to be sent to all users, all registered attendees. The first question that we have in here is, do you want a copy of the agency trust check for net pay? Good question. With our Lloyd's BRIT program, that is exactly what we would need. It can either be a customer's check or the agency check, so either of those is fine. However, with Chubb, since it's a direct bill company, we really can't receive a check here. It has to be sent directly to Chubb from the customer or from the mortgage company. So if it is a lender pay and it's Chubb, just make sure you let us know that, again, it's a lender pay and that we have the full mortgage clause at binding so that Chubb can bill them directly. And then for vintage cars, we have a question whether it's valued or at guaranteed replacement cost. I believe it is valued. I do recall that on one of our quotes. However, if you, I will get in contact with you just to confirm that and make sure that that's the correct answer. I apologize, I'm just not 100% on that, so I'll find that out for Cecilia. I'm going to hang on just a few more minutes for any last moment questions. Everyone can still hear? Okay, good. Any other questions anyone has before we sign off? That's a great question. Yelena asked, what if it's a new purchase? It does come up at times that on new purchases, the customer has some difficulty obtaining all of the required information that we need. We do ask to do as much digging as possible, maybe reaching out to the realtor to find out all the details. One of the items that comes up the most in that situation is any prior claim activity. Although it was a claim incurred under the prior owner, depending on the nature of that loss, it may still require some information. And, especially when it's a water claim, to be perfectly honest, that is the biggest problem that we have on new purchases is prior water claims under the prior owner. For that, I do understand some realtors or prior owners will release a letter to the new seller or new buyer, outlining any type of claim activity, what happened, what they can recall from servicing and repairs made. If you can obtain that, that's great. If not, just let us know, and we will take that to the underwriter and see what we can do. That's the best we can offer, is to go to bat and see if there's any type of exception that can be made. We do understand that has happened, but in terms of new purchases otherwise, I don't know if you have a specific situation that you're looking that you might need help with. The claims, again, is really the only time it becomes a problem, I guess, on a new purchase. Marcy, can you think of any situation on new purchases that may be problematic?
Yeah. No, I think you covered it. We just need as much information as possible, and sometimes when there have been situations where there's not a lot of detail, a lot of the time when there's been a property inspection done for the new purchase, just to check out the property, a lot of information comes into play there into the report for an agent to be able to review and maybe get some different details.
That's a good point, yeah. Definitely all the details such as square footage, sometimes that can be hard to obtain. We also do suggest looking at the online listing if possible. You can at times get a good deal of info from that.
Yeah. And they're usually going to have that property inspection report. That's one of the first things that you're going to be getting, before you, open up your escrow and go through the whole process, is to see if there's any issues or concerns with the property before everybody's moving forward. So usually that's something that is available through the real estate agent that can give to the broker, or the customer can give to the agent, just to get some more details.
Yeah. Great question. Okay, well, I think we're going to close our webinar unless there's any last-minute questions. Again, we do appreciate you taking time out of your busy afternoon and hope that we see some great submissions coming through. I look forward to helping out as best as possible.